Hello, this is Dr. Hausinger, and this is the lecture for Chapter 9, Mutual Help Groups and Spiritual Religious Resources. Mutual aid groups. Okay, there is a difference between 12-step facilitated treatment and 12-step self-help groups. Okay, 12-step facilitated treatment is a formal treatment where usually inpatient, sometimes outpatient, are guided through the 12 steps in a treatment facility versus the 12-step self-help groups, which are out in the community, and there are far many of them. Okay. Alcoholics Anonymous is spiritually based fellowship, and it is free. It started in the 1930s. And now there are all types of anonymouses: Gambling Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, everything. Voluntary treatment is consistent with harm reduction. Involuntary treatment might be for those who failed at moderation. And we have a law in Washington now, Ricky's Law, that was just put into effect last year, which is for family members of addicted ones that they can involuntarily commit themselves, commit their loved ones if they feel like that they're at risk for death. Okay. Okay. And it's not without its stipulations. Okay. Right. It's Ricky's Law, House Bill 1713, aligns Washington's substance use and mental health statutes addressing the way we deliver care to individuals. The law was named after Ricky Garcia, a young man who suffered for years from substance use disorders and was hospitalized several times due to feeling suicidal. And you can find this on the hca.wa.gov website. So it's involuntary treatment, and each state is going to have different rules on this. Not every state does. Okay. The police can involuntarily commit someone, as can a designated mental health professional, but this is a new law. The goal was to create a unified involuntary commitment law that allows those who are at risk due to substance use disorder to get the necessary care to protect them and the community. This went into effect on April 1st, 2018, where designated mental health professionals would be able to detain a person who meets the criteria for involuntary treatment due to a substance use disorder to a secure withdrawal management and stabilization facility if there is space available. So you can find this on the Washington State Healthcare Authority webpage. All right, so you have the 12 steps on box 11.1. We'll go through these. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Okay. So look at the language here. Take some time to reflect upon the language. One of the criticisms is that it's written in a Judeo-Christian way. Right. And a lot of people have problems with the powerlessness. But we're going to look at the other 7 as well. Okay. Step 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Great. Um, Greater involvement in AA has been found to be effective, but it works particularly well when coupled with other forms of support. AA is not treatment. The self help group is not treatment. Um, and it sometimes is used as a catch all, but it works really well when paired with treatment. There's a use of narratives, stories of powerlessness over the addiction, talking about the lives being out of control, but then sharing strength and hope. There are a lot of feminist objections to the 12 steps, and there is a psychologist, she's now deceased, but her name was Charlotte Castle, and she wrote the 16 steps, which she rewrote the 12 steps and then changed them to reflect a feminist standpoint that's more inclusive of women and minorities. So she redid the steps and then added a couple. Her name is Charlotte Castle, Kasl. Okay, and I would like to read these to you. The 16 steps. We affirm we have the power to take charge of our lives and stop being dependent on substances or other people to our self-esteem and security. The alternative is we admit, acknowledge we are out of control with powerless over blank, yet have the power to take charge of our lives and stop being dependent on substances or other people for our self-esteem and security. We come to believe that God, Goddess, Universe, Great Spirit, Higher Power awakens the healing wisdom within us when we open ourselves to the power. We make a decision to become our authentic selves and trust in the healing power of truth. Number 4, we examine our beliefs, addictions, and dependent behavior in the context of living in a hierarchical, patriarchal culture. 5, we share with another person and the universe all those things inside of us for which we feel shame and guilt. 6, we affirm and enjoy our intelligence, strengths, and creativity, remembering not to hide those qualities for ourselves and others. 7, we become willing to let go of shame, guilt, and any behavior that keeps us from loving ourselves and others. 8, we make a list of people we have harmed and people who have harmed us and take steps to clear out negative energy by making amends and sharing our grievances in a respectful way. Number 9, we express love and gratitude to others and increasingly appreciate the wonder of life and the blessings we do have. Number 10, we learn to trust our reality and daily affirm that what we see, we know what we know, and we feel what we feel. We promptly admit to mistakes and make amends when appropriate, but we do not say we are sorry for things we have not done, and we don't cover up, analyze, or take responsibility for the shortcomings of others. We seek out situations, jobs, and people who affirm our intelligence, perceptions, and self-worth, and avoid situations or people who are hurtful, harmful, or demeaning to us. 13, we take steps to heal our physical bodies, organize our lives, reduce stress, and have fun. 14, we seek to find our inward calling and develop the will and wisdom to follow it. 15, we accept the ups and downs of life as natural events that can be used as lessons for our growth. And 16, we grow in awareness that we are sacred beings, interrelated with all living things, and we contribute to restoring peace and balance on the planet. So they were rewritten in a modern way. There were also, there's a documentary that you can watch. It's on Prime. You might be able to find it other places, but it's called The 13 Steps, which is a critical look at predatory behavior within AA, which is kind of interesting. AA works for about 5 to 10% of people, and those whom it works for really, really like it. However, sometimes the other alternatives are not really well known or advertised, and that can leave people to feeling that AA is the only option. And multiple courts have found that it was unconstitutional to court order people to AA. They have to offer an alternative because it is a spiritual religious program. Okay. Right. There's the metaphor of disease that alcoholism is a spiritual disease, and that's what's meant by being powerlessness. Okay. And there is there's the big book, which is, for lack of a better word, the Bible of AA. And there are a lot of great slogans that come out of AA that are good really for anybody who's a person. One day at a time, nothing changes. If nothing changes, it works. If you work it, it's worth it. So there's a lot of great slogans and sayings that I think you could apply even if you're not into AA. Other self help groups include Gambling Anonymous. Members tend to be older and have higher rate of abstinence after attending for 2 months, which is huge because we know that gamblers have the highest rate of suicide because of the shame and guilt. It addresses financial as well as spiritual problems. NA, Narcotics Anonymous, tends to be younger, and you'll see multilingual meetings and LGBTQ meetings. We have the Women for Sobriety program that has 13 steps. Smart Recovery is a cognitive approach, and I've heard it described as free therapy. Moderation management starts at 30 days of abstinence, and it's a harm reduction strategy. They call it the Big 30. About 25% of people do end up going the full abstinent. So again, we say that there's no wrong door to recovery. Okay. Right. Your author has 9 steps of AA. Okay. And then, of course, we have the 16 steps. So, all right. Some of the critiques is that it's outdated and it's Judeo-Christian and patriarchal. Okay. So let's look at the 9 steps from your author. We acknowledged we had lost control over the source of the addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to wholeness. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of a higher power as we understood him, her, or it. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, our relationships, and our manner of living. 5, acknowledged the higher power to ourselves and to another human being the exact nature of our addiction. 6, made a list of all persons whose suffering was connected to our own. 7, made every effort to restore physically and spiritually to ourselves and others those things that were lost. 8, sought through prayer and or meditation to enrich our sense of connectedness to nature and to one another. 9, having had a personal and spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others in need and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So you can see that the language is much more neutral and some of the steps have been altered and removed. We have a new trend now, recovery community centers, which might be drop-in centers. It's a new development in some states, and it's through a recovery management philosophy. They provide services such as telephone support, usually by a volunteer in recovery. Sometimes they're called recovery coaches, and there's about a 40-hour training for that. Family support groups, housing assistance, recovery group meetings, social events, and recovery coaching. They even might have things like yoga and art therapy. Okay. Some recommendations concerning gambling. Research shows that it might be a good idea to restrict all gambling to those who are at least 21 years of age. Remove slot machines from neighborhood stores, banning betting on collegiate and amateur athletic events, which is a huge industry. Ban aggressive advertising that targets impoverished neighborhoods and youth, and prohibit credit card machines in casinos. Could you imagine if there weren't casinos, credit card machines in casinos? All right. Thank you so much for your attention.